Hey again everyone, this is Steve from Hit It Longer and welcome back to the channel. In this video I'm going to talk about the different variations of hand action, wrist motion, which ones might hinder your game and which ones will help giving you more distance and accuracy, so stick around. Hey, if you're new to the channel, you're probably like me, always seeking longer and straighter tee shots with less effort. So if that's you and you're on your journey to reach milestones like 250-yard drive, a 300-yard drive, maybe more, you want to hit the subscribe and turn on the bell notifications so you can be aware of all the new videos that I come out with. Okay, that being said, let's get right into it. There are three main pairs of wrist motions that you can make in a golf swing. Three pairs, so a total of six. The first pair would be called palmar flexion, dorsiflexion. Okay, that's one pair. The second pair of wrist motions you could make would be up and down, which would be called radial flexion, ulnar deviation. Third motion you can make would be supination, pronation. Let's look at them in the right hand now. Here comes dorsiflexion of the right wrist, palmar flexion of the right wrist, radial flexion of the right wrist, ulnar deviation of the right wrist. Here is supination of the right wrist and pronation of the right wrist. That's the main six variations you can use the wrist in a golf swing. Now let's look at the ones that would be advantageous to a golf swing and which ones might hinder your distance, which ones might hinder your accuracy. Let's look at the first pair, the dorsiflexion, palmar flexion. What you see when you eliminate all other sources of motion, you'll see palmar flexion would tend to wind the club up while keeping the face of the club square to the arc that it's traveling on. Let's look at it. I'll bring it closer and aim at the camera more. Here is palmar flexion only. Do you see how that club face is still pointing right along the arc into the ball? And if I do a dorsiflexion from here, again, the club face stays very stable, square to its arc, travels on an arc, and advances the club around the circle. So because of that, this would be a very advantageous wrist motion to use through the impact zone. If it advances the club around the arc, it means that it's adding speed, club head speed. If it's swinging the club around the right arc, it's also going to give you path for accuracy. And if it's keeping the rate of closure through the impact zone low, in other words, that doesn't make the club flip over, it means it's also going to help you hit it straight. So palmar flexion, dorsiflexion hits all three check marks. It's something we would definitely want through the impact zone in our swing, something like this to this. Let's look at the second pair, and that's the radial flexion, ulnar deviation. Now, obviously in this position it would do us no good because all we do is just stick it in the ground and pound like a hammer. So it's like a hammering motion up and down of the wrist like that. However, when the thumb is turned sideways, or we get a combination of pronation of the left forearm, aided by the inner rotator cuff right here on the anterior side, helping turn the humerus bone as well. See, watch, I can leave the upper arm not turned, and I can just turn I can turn the pronation all by itself. But in this case, we're going to be doing the whole arm together. Okay, now from here, if the arm is turned, and see I've also added a radial flexion to it. See, now the ulnar deviation is greatly advancing the club around its circle up until a point. You see that if I don't make any other motion here, I will have reached an impasse and I can't make it go any farther. Now that doesn't do all by itself, it doesn't do a lot of squaring the club face. So we do like this motion for advancing the club and starting to build speed from the top of the swing. But all by itself alone, it's not going to be enough to square the club face. And so you would slice it every time. You might get a lot of speed, but you might slice the ball every time from an open club face. So radial flexion, handy to wind the club up, certainly. Radial flexion, same thing in the right hand. Radial flexion will help to cock the wrists, wind the club up. So we do like that motion. We do like ulnar deviation, but needs to be in combination with something else. Okay, the third one you have is, you have pronation supination. Now all by itself, here I'm going to pronate, supinate. Now let me see if I can hit a golf ball far with that motion alone. Okay, I got the ball about 2 feet. So that's isolated. The supination, pronation all by itself is not going to aid in attaining a high club head speed. In the meantime, it's also opening and closing the blade very rapidly. You see that? Which would make our errors tend to be great. If we make a timing error, we could go from super open to super closed. So the directional control will be very low. So this by itself doesn't add much for us. However, if we were to ulnar deviate in combination with the pronation, which then will turn the wrist from the ulnar deviation into the dorsiflexion as the arm rolls over from the shoulder down. See, again, I can isolate. Here is supination of the forearm without the assistance of the upper arm. But in this case, I'm going to use the whole thing. So I'm going ulnar deviation to get the acceleration started, then supination and dorsiflexion. In the right hand, it would be, again, a little bit of ulnar deviation, but mostly in this case it's going to be palmar flexion and pronation that's assisted at the shoulder by the internal rotator cuff here, looking like that. Okay, let's look at it from this angle now. Here is dorsiflexion, palmar flexion of the left hand, palmar flexion and dorsiflexion. So I could actually hit a golf ball like that, straight, palmar flexion, dorsiflexion. Hit the ball dead straight down the target about 25 yards with the roll, just with a 1 hour motion. So straight and adding distance, so we really like that. Okay, the ulnar deviation will get the acceleration started, but it's not enough to square the club. But done in combination, ulnar deviation, dorsiflexion, with some supination of the left forearm assisted by the external rotator cuff, we'll get this motion here. That would be the best combination of wrist actions to use for the longest and straightest hits. Let's look at one of the ones that I think is the most destructive that's been taught for a long time, but I don't think it will give you neither accuracy nor distance. Let's check that out. A lot of people have coached to never let the club head pass, so they hate this position here. They think you're going to scoop it from here. And they would be right if you didn't have a pivot to go with it. Okay, so they don't want to let go. They want to compress the ball and all that stuff. So they never want to let the club go into, the wrist go into dorsiflexion, right wrist go into palmar flexion. Now that is greatly of assistance in squaring the club head. So if I'm here, I'm going to bring it in and it's going to be open if I don't have any dorsiflexion. The club is going to be open. So they prescribe holding the wrist angle and then supinating the wrist to flip it over. We already saw that the supination of the wrist and the pronation of this wrist does not assist in sending the club around the circle, so it would give us no speed. And the club face would be rapidly closing. Mike Ostino would always say that this would be a great way to duck hook it. Certainly, you're going to go from open to close very rapidly, and you're going to have the club leading forward a lot, so you're going to get no distance on the mid to long irons and fairway woods because you're just going to be hitting super low bullets the whole time. So compressing the ball should not be confused with compressing the ground. This way you just compress the ground. That's not the way I'd want to do things. I want to hit the ball long and straight, not short with and low with the potential of going crooked. Hey, I hope this helps. Hope it earned your subscribe, and hey, check out the links in the description. There's some cool freebies down there that I'd love you to have, and thanks for watching. Hope to see you again soon.